I'm Rachel, 31, and I've built my life as a successful real estate investor, despite my family always favouring my sister Madison. When I discovered the historic Hawthorne estate, Madison's dream wedding venue, was for sale, something clicked inside me. After years of being overlooked, I bought it anonymously. You should have seen their faces when I revealed I owned the place they'd been begging to use. Before I tell you how I took back what was rightfully mine, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt overlooked in your own family. Growing up in suburban Boston in the early 2000s, our family looked picture perfect from the outside. My parents, Linda and Robert Wilson, worked respectable jobs, Mom as an elementary school teacher and Dad as a bank manager. We lived in a modest 2-story colonial with a well-kept yard, the quintessential middle-class American family. And then there was my sister Madison, 3 years younger than me, with her natural blonde curls and winning smile that seemed to charm everyone instantly. The signs of favouritism started subtly. For my 10th birthday, I received a practical set of books I'd been asking for, served with a simple chocolate cake in our kitchen. 3 years later, Madison's 10th birthday featured a professionally decorated princess-themed party in our backyard with a bouncy castle, a magician, and custom-made cupcakes with her face printed on edible paper. Mum spent weeks planning it. Madison's more social, they'd explain. She needs these experiences. My bedroom featured second-hand furniture painted white, functional bookshelves filled with library books, and walls covered with academic achievement certificates. Madison's room underwent regular redecorations, pink princess phase, followed by a pop star phase, then a boho chic makeover when she turned 13. Her walls displayed professional photographs of her winning smile, while her closet overflowed with new clothes. I threw myself into academics, finding validation in the praise from teachers instead of parents. In 7th grade, I won the regional science fair with a project on sustainable urban planning. The award ceremony fell on the same day as Madison's. Dance recital. My parents didn't even pretend it was a difficult choice. "We'll see your certificate when you get home," Mum said, adjusting Madison's dance costume. "Your sister needs us there for support. You understand, right? You're so independent." I sat alone at the awards ceremony, watching other parents beam with pride, taking photos and bringing flowers. I clutched my blue ribbon tightly, forcing back tears when the organiser asked where my family was. That night, I pinned the ribbon to my bulletin board myself, while my parents gushed over videos of Madison's performance downstairs. My grandmother Eleanor was different. Living an hour away in a cosy Cape Cod cottage filled with books and the smell of cinnamon, she became my sanctuary. During weekend visits, she'd listen intently to my thoughts, dreams and accomplishments with genuine interest. "Rachel," she told me one afternoon as we baked cookies together when I was 12, "some people shine like glitter, catching everyone's eye immediately. Others shine like diamonds, requiring more attention to discover their true value. You're a diamond, my dear. Never forget that your worth isn't diminished because some people are too impatient to look closely." That became my mantra through years of watching Madison receive new clothes while I got hand-me-downs, seeing her mediocre report cards celebrated while my straight A's were expected, hearing my parents cheer wildly at her average soccer games, while they checked emails during my debate team finals. I learned self-reliance young. By 14, I was cooking my own meals, managing my homework without help, and finding my own rides to extracurricular activities. Meanwhile, Madison had our parents micromanaging her assignments, preparing special meals for her sensitive stomach, and driving her everywhere even when public transportation was available. "Your sister needs more support," became my parents' favourite phrase. "You're just naturally good at things, Rachel." What they never understood was that independence wasn't my natural state. It was my adaptation to their emotional neglect. I stopped asking for help with calculus homework after being told, "Figure it out yourself, we need to help Madison with her English essay." I stopped sharing my accomplishments after too many distracted nods. I stopped expecting them to attend my events after too many empty chairs. By high school graduation, I'd constructed a carefully controlled persona, the self-sufficient achiever who didn't need anyone. Inside, however, the little girl who just wanted her parents to be proud of her, never quite disappeared. When my college acceptance letters arrived senior year, I spread them across our dining table with trembling hands. Harvard, Yale, Columbia, and Stanford, all offering me admission. The culmination of years of perfect grades, leadership positions, and carefully crafted essays had paid off. My heart raced as I heard my parents' car pull into the driveway. Finally, they would have to acknowledge my hard work. "That's nice, honey," Mum said, glancing briefly at the prestigious letterheads, before turning to Madison. "Maddie, did you decide what you're wearing to prom?" Dad at least squeezed my shoulder. "Good job, kiddo. Those are some fancy schools. Have you figured out how you're paying for them?" Their question made my stomach sink. We had discussed college, financing for years. They had established college funds for both Madison and me. I reminded them of this, and the uncomfortable silence that followed told me everything. "Well," Dad finally said, clearing his throat, "we had to dip into your fund a bit for some family expenses." The family expenses turned out to be Madison's modelling portfolio photo shoots, pageant entry fees, and private dance lessons. My college fund had been nearly depleted while Madison's remained untouched. I accepted a scholarship to Wharton School of Business, supplementing it with 3 part-time jobs. My weekdays started at 5 a.m, rushing between classes, the campus coffee shop, the library reference desk, and evening tutoring sessions. Weekends meant 12-hour shifts at a local restaurant. While my classmates enjoyed football games and fraternity parties, I was calculating tips and finishing assignments during break times. Meanwhile, Madison enrolled in our local community college, taking general studies classes between modelling gigs. My parents covered her full tuition, apartment rent, and even gave her a monthly allowance. During one phone call, Mum mentioned casually that they had just helped Madison lease a new car because she needed reliable transportation for auditions. I was taking the bus in Philadelphia winter slush, wearing shoes with holes because I couldn't afford new ones that month. During my sophomore year Thanksgiving break, I returned home exhausted from finals and my hectic work schedule. I'd lost weight from skipping meals to save money and had dark circles under my eyes from sleep deprivation. "You look terrible," was Mum's greeting as I dragged my suitcase through the door. "You should take better care of yourself." That evening, Madison arrived 2 hours late for dinner, disrupting the carefully timed meal, but received only affectionate teasing. She spent dinner scrolling through her phone, interrupting conversations to show Instagram photos of her latest modelling shoot. "I'm thinking of dropping out," she announced casually over pumpkin pie. "College isn't really necessary for my career, and my follower count is growing." Instead of concern, my parents nodded thoughtfully. "You need to follow your passion," Mum said supportively. "We'll help you with the transition," Dad added. I couldn't hold back anymore. "Are you serious? You emptied my college fund, but you're fine with her wasting her education?" The silence that followed was deafening. "Rachel," Dad finally said sternly, "your sister has different talents. Not everyone needs to follow your path." That night, I called my grandmother from my childhood bedroom, tears streaming down my face. "I can't do this anymore, Grandma. They don't see me. They never have." Her voice was gentle but firm. "Then build a life where you're seen, Rachel. Success is the best revenge, but more importantly, it's your path to freedom." 2 months later, my grandfather passed away unexpectedly. He left most of his modest estate to Grandma, but included a small inheritance of $20,000 for me, his only specific bequest to any grandchild. While my parents questioned why Madison received nothing, I knew. Grandpa had watched quietly for years, seeing what I was only beginning to understand. I used that money to make my first real estate investment, a run-down studio apartment near campus that I renovated on weekends and rented to another student. It wasn't much, but it was mine, the first thing that truly belonged to me alone. After graduation, I limited my visits home to major holidays and brief obligatory appearances. Each interaction only reinforced what I already knew. I would never be the daughter they wanted. The commercial real estate market in Philadelphia was competitive and unwelcoming to a fresh-faced 22-year-old woman with a single property in her portfolio. During my first year post-graduation, I faced constant rejection, condescension, and dismissal. Senior brokers honey-ed and sweetheart-ed me through meetings before ignoring my calls. Property owners questioned my experience with thinly veiled skepticism. At a networking event where I'd spent my last decent money on a second-hand suit and professional hairstyling, a senior broker looked me up and down and said, "Real estate's a tough business, sweetie. Have you considered something more suitable?" That night, I sat in my tiny apartment, surrounded by market research and property listings, and cried until my throat hurt. Then I washed my face, made more coffee, and kept working. My breakthrough came when I met Victoria Reynolds, a 50-something real estate veteran with steel grey hair and a reputation for brutal honesty. After listening to my property analysis, at an industry seminar, she handed me her business card. "You've done your homework, kid. Most of these idiots haven't. Come see me Monday." Victoria became my mentor, teaching me to navigate the male-dominated industry while recognizing my analytical strengths. She didn't coddle me. She pushed me harder than anyone ever had, expecting excellence and accepting no excuses. "You've got good instincts and better research skills," she told me after I successfully closed my first commercial deal under her guidance. "But you've got a chip on your shoulder the size of Texas. Channel that anger into ambition, not bitterness." By 27, I had established a reputation for identifying undervalued properties with hidden potential. My specialty became historic buildings that others considered too risky or complicated. I loved the challenge of preserving their character while making them profitable again. Each success built my confidence and portfolio. My professional network expanded, but I kept people at arm's length emotionally. A relationship with Michael, a kind architectural engineer, ended after 8 months when he gently pointed out that I never let him see the real me. "You've built walls so high, Rachel," he said during our last dinner together. "I'm not sure you even know how to let them down anymore." His words haunted me into therapy, where Dr. Linden helped me recognize the patterns of emotional self-protection I'd developed from childhood. Our weekly sessions became a lifeline as I worked through years of accumulated hurt. "You didn't imagine the favoritism," she confirmed after several months, "but you can choose how it shapes your future." I built a chosen family from carefully cultivated friendships. Zoe, my straight-talking attorney. Daniel, a restaurant owner who fed me proper meals when I worked too much. Amber, my jogging partner who pushed me to maintain work-life balance. And Thomas, Victoria's son, who became like the brother I'd never had. My financial success accelerated with each year. I purchased a modern loft in a building I had renovated, furnished it with pieces that brought me joy rather than status, and created the warm, welcoming home I'd always craved. My office overlooking the Philadelphia skyline housed an expanding team of like-minded professionals who shared my vision. Occasional family interactions continued, though with diminishing frequency. Madison had indeed dropped out of college, cycling through modelling jobs, influencer partnerships and retail positions. My parents subsidised her lifestyle through loans that never seemed to require repayment, while questioning my risky career choices despite my growing success. During a rare Sunday dinner at their house when I was 29, Mum picked at her food while complaining about their financial struggles. "The house needs a new roof, but I don't know how we'll manage it with helping Madison with her rent again." I offered to help, explaining that I was in a position to assist financially. The suggestion was met with uncomfortable silence. "We couldn't take your money," Dad finally said, though they had no problem depleting my college fund for Madison years earlier. "Besides," Mum added with a dismissive wave, "all that money stuff isn't real security. Property values can crash. Overnight." Their dismissal of my decade of hard work stung, but no longer devastated me. I had found peace and validation within myself and my chosen circle. The annual dinner with Grandma Eleanor remained my true family ritual, her pride in my accomplishments genuine and unwavering. "You've built something beautiful," she told me during our last visit before her health began to decline. "Not just your business, but yourself." My mother's call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing contracts for a new development project. Seeing her name on my caller ID was unusual enough that my assistant raised her eyebrows questioningly. "Everything okay?" she mouthed, as I answered. "Rachel, darling." Mum's voice carried an enthusiasm rarely directed at me. "We need you to come for dinner this Friday, something important to discuss." My stomach tightened with familiar anxiety. "I have plans already," I lied, reflexively. "You'll need to change them. This is family business." Her tone left no room for negotiation. "Madison has news." And there it was, the real reason for the summons. I agreed reluctantly, rearranging my actual plans with friends who understood my complicated family dynamics all too well. Friday evening. Found me parking in front of my childhood home, taking deep breaths as I prepared for whatever Madison-centric celebration awaited. The house looked the same, too many garden gnomes in the front yard, chipping paint on the shutters, but a new luxury SUV in the driveway that I knew my parents couldn't really afford. Inside, Madison was already holding court in the living room, radiant in a white sundress that highlighted her perfect tan. Beside her sat a tall man with carefully styled brown hair and the confident posture of old money. "Rachel!" she squealed with practiced enthusiasm. "Finally! I'm dying for you to meet James." James Thornton III, as he was formally introduced, came from Connecticut wealth, family money and pharmaceuticals, his own successful investment banking career, vacation homes in 3 countries, and all the polished charm of his privileged upbringing. "Madison has told me so much about her brilliant big sister," he said, though his eyes revealed no recognition of any specific detail about me. Throughout the elaborate dinner Mum had prepared, all Madison's favourites, naturally. The reason for the gathering became clear. A massive diamond sparkled on Madison's left hand, catching the light with every dramatic gesture she made. "We're getting married in 6 months," Madison announced, though everyone but me clearly already knew. James proposed at sunset on his family's yacht in the Mediterranean. What followed was a tsunami of wedding details that had apparently been in planning for weeks without my knowledge. The date was set, the guest list at 300 people, the colour scheme selected, and most importantly, the venue secured. "We've booked Hawthorne Estate," Mum gushed, pulling up photos on her tablet. "The most exclusive historic venue in New England." The Hawthorne Estate was indeed spectacular, a 19th-century mansion with sprawling gardens, a renovated ballroom, and a reputation for hosting only the most elite events. The waiting list was rumoured to be years long. James's family connections helped us secure it, Dad added proudly. Quite the coup. As dinner progressed, it became clear that my parents were emptying their retirement accounts to fund this extravaganza. Between whispered asides about costs and Mum's not-so-subtle comments about tightening our belts, I pieced together the financial reality. "We're looking at about 150,000, Dad mentioned casually, as if discussing the weather, rather than their life savings. I nearly choked on my water. "That's a lot. Are you sure that's wise?" Mum waved dismissively. "Your sister only gets married once." The irony of her certainty wasn't lost on me. "I can help," I offered, knowing I could easily contribute without financial strain. "I'd be happy to—" "Absolutely not," Dad interrupted firmly. "We're handling this," Madison chimed in. "Besides, Rachel, not everything is about money and practicality. Some things are about dreams and memories." The implication that I was somehow emotionally deficient for considering financial realities hung in the air. The conversation quickly turned to wedding party arrangements. "So I'll have 6 bridesmaids," Madison explained, ticking off names on her fingers. "My maid of honour is obviously Tiffany." I waited for my role to be mentioned, assuming I'd at least be included in the wedding party. "And Rachel," she finally added as an apparent afterthought. "You'll be bridesmaid number 6. The deliberate positioning, last, least important, was unmistakable. Not maid of honour, not even a senior bridesmaid, but the final name on a list of her friends. "I thought sisters were usually maids of honour," I said quietly. Madison's perfect smile tightened. Tiffany and I have been best friends forever. She knows me better than anyone. The unspoken message was clear. You don't know me. You're not important enough. And the dress might need alterations for you, she added, eyeing me critically. You're so businesslike in your build, not very feminine. Mum nodded in agreement while Dad studied his plate, avoiding the conversation entirely. By dessert, Madison was in full bridezilla mode, listing demands for my participation. Specific shoes that would help with your height issue, makeup professionally, done to brighten your severe features, and a strict diet plan so we all look good in photos. When I finally left that night, the familiar ache of exclusion had returned full force. In my car, I called Zoe, who listened to my recounting with increasing indignation. They're unbelievable, she fumed. Why do you still subject yourself to this? It was a question I couldn't fully answer, even to myself. 3 weeks after the wedding announcement dinner, I was reviewing potential investment properties when an intriguing listing caught my attention. A historic estate facing financial difficulties was discreetly seeking new ownership. The photos looked familiar, and with a jolt of recognition, I realised it was Hawthorne Estate, Madison's dream wedding venue. Despite its prestigious reputation, the property had been mismanaged for years. The current owners, descendants of the original family, lacked the capital for necessary renovations and the business acumen to run it profitably. They were seeking a silent investor to save the property while maintaining its legacy. I studied the financial documents with professional detachment at first. The property had solid bones, but hemorrhaged money through inefficient operations, outdated systems, and poor marketing. With proper management and strategic investments, it could be transformed from a money pit into a profitable enterprise. For several days, I tried to ignore the personal connection, focusing solely on the business aspects. I ran projections, consulted industry contacts about the wedding venue market, and even drove by the property incognito. The investment made sense financially, but the entanglement with my family complicated matters. I called Victoria for her objective assessment. The numbers work, I explained, sharing my analysis, but there's a personal element I'm concerned about. After hearing the full story, Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Rachel, she finally said, I've taught you to separate emotion from business decisions, but sometimes an opportunity serves both. The question is whether you're buying this property because it's a good investment or because you want revenge. Can't it be both? I asked. Her laugh was understanding. Just be honest with yourself about your motivations and be prepared for the consequences. That weekend, I visited my grandmother, whose health had been declining steadily. At 83, her body was failing, but her mind remained sharp. I sat beside her hospital bed, holding her fragile hand as I confided my discovery about the venue. I don't know if I'm considering this for the right reasons, I admitted. Grandma Eleanor's eyes, still bright with intelligence, studied me carefully. There's a difference between standing up for yourself and seeking revenge, she said softly. One heals you, the other keeps the wound open. How do I know which this is? She squeezed my hand with surprising strength. Ask yourself what you want the outcome to be. Do you want to hurt them, or do you want them to finally see you? Her question stayed with me as I drove home, weighing heavily on my mind as I considered my options. The truth was complicated. Part of me did want to hurt them the way they'd hurt me, but a deeper part just wanted acknowledgement, recognition of my worth, a place at the family table that wasn't an afterthought. The next morning, I made my decision. I would purchase Hawthorne Estate, but not as Rachel Wilson. I established an anonymous holding company, Diamante Properties LLC, a nod to Grandma's diamond metaphor from my childhood, with layers of legal protection ensuring my identity remained concealed. The negotiations were complex, but progressed quickly. The sellers were motivated, and I offered fair terms that respected the property's heritage while addressing its financial realities. My team handled the details with discretion, and within 6 weeks, just 4 months before Madison's wedding date, I became the official owner of Hawthorne Estate. As I signed the final documents, my attorney raised an eyebrow. You know there are already events booked for the next year, she reminded me, including some very high-profile weddings. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. I'm aware. We'll honour all existing contracts, with review, of course. That night, alone in my loft, I opened a bottle of champagne but found I couldn't celebrate. The mixture of anticipation, anxiety, and lingering doubt about my own motivations left a bitter aftertaste that even expensive champagne couldn't mask. 2 weeks after finalising the purchase, my phone exploded with messages from my family. Madison's hysterical voicemail came first. Rachel, the venue is saying there's new management and they're reviewing all contracts. What does that even mean? They can't do this to me. You know business stuff. Call me back right now. My parents' messages followed, each increasingly desperate. Dad's focused on potential legal recourse, while Mum's bordered on emotional blackmail. Your sister is devastated, Rachel. This is supposed to be the happiest time of her life. If you have any contacts or knowledge that could help. I waited, a full day before responding, using the time to finalise my approach. When I finally called back, I maintained a carefully concerned but detached tone. That sounds stressful, I sympathised. What exactly did they say? Madison sniffled dramatically. Some corporate entity bought the place, and now they're evaluating all agreements. They won't even tell us who the new owners are. It's all secret and hidden behind some company called Diamond Properties or something. Diamante, I corrected automatically, then quickly added, I assume, since that means diamond in Italian. Sounds like an investment group. Whatever, Madison dismissed. Can you help or not? James's family is embarrassed by this whole situation. They pulled strings to get this venue. I agreed to reach out to the new management as a favour, promising nothing but offering to leverage my real estate connections. Over the next few days, I orchestrated a careful charade, sending emails between my personal account and the venue's official address, which now redirected to a separate account I controlled. A week later, I arranged a meeting at Hawthorne Estate, positioning myself as an intermediary who had convinced the new ownership to discuss options. My family arrived first, Madison visibly distressed in oversized sunglasses, James looking annoyed at the inconvenience, my parents hovering anxiously. I arrived last, dressed in my most authoritative business attire. I've spoken with the management, I explained. They've agreed to honour the booking with some adjustments. Adjustments? Madison's voice rose dangerously. What adjustments? Standard contract revisions, I replied smoothly. Updated pricing to reflect current market rates, modified terms regarding vendors, limitations on guest behaviour. I presented the new contract I had prepared, watching as James reviewed the significant price increase with narrowing eyes. This is highway robbery, he declared. A 30% increase with only months to go? The previous owners were undercharging significantly, I explained with professional detachment. The new rates reflect the venue's actual market value. Madison began to cry, mascara tracking down her cheeks. They can't do this. It's my perfect venue. Daddy, do something. My father looked uncomfortable but determined. We'll find the money somehow. Over the following weeks, I continued the facade, introducing new complications with carefully timed precision. The exclusive caterer they'd selected was no longer approved. The extended reception hours would incur substantial additional fees. The custom lighting installation would require venue supervision at additional cost. Each change was technically justifiable from a business perspective, but designed to steadily increase both cost and frustration. With each new obstacle, my family became more desperate, reaching out to me as their only liaison to the mysterious new owners. The deception took an emotional toll I hadn't anticipated. I struggled to sleep, wrestling with guilt during restless nights. During therapy sessions, I avoided discussing the situation, knowing Dr. Linden would question my actions. My friends noticed my distraction, but attributed it to family wedding stress. 3 weeks before the wedding, with final arrangements still unresolved, my grandmother's health took a sharp decline. At her bedside, her lucidity coming and going, I confessed the full situation. I'm controlling everything from behind the scenes, I admitted during a moment of clarity. They don't know it's me. Grandma's eyes, cloudy with medication but still perceptive, studied my face. And how does it feel? The question pierced through my defences. Hollow, I whispered. Not like I expected. She nodded slightly. Because revenge doesn't fill the empty spaces, Rachel. Only truth does. She squeezed my hand weakly. Be brave enough for the truth. The day before the wedding, I called an emergency meeting at Hawthorne Estate to resolve final details. The grand entrance hall with its sweeping staircase provided the perfect backdrop for what would come next. My family arrived tense and exhausted from weeks of wedding planning chaos. I'm afraid there's been another complication, I began. Of course there has, Madison snapped, her usually perfect appearance frayed from stress. There's been nothing but complications since these mysterious new owners took over. Yes, I agreed calmly. About those owners. I paused, heart pounding so loudly I was sure they could hear it. Years of hurt, dismissal, and invisibility crystallized into this moment of truth. I'm the owner, I said simply. Diamante Properties is my company. I bought Hawthorne Estate 2 months ago. The silence that followed was absolute. Madison's mouth opened and closed without sound. James looked between us in confusion. My father's face drained of colour, while my mother gripped the back of a chair for support. That's not possible, Dad finally said. You couldn't afford. My real estate portfolio is worth over $30 million, I stated without emotion. Hawthorne was a strategic acquisition. Madison found her voice, high and breaking. You did this on purpose. You're trying to ruin my wedding because you're jealous. Jealous. The word hung in the air between us. I've spent my entire life being treated as an afterthought in this family. College fund emptied for Madison's hobbies, achievements ignored, relegated to last place bridesmaid in my own sister's wedding. Years of carefully controlled emotions finally broke through. Do you have any idea what that feels like? To never, not once, be the priority, to always be the responsible one, the independent one, the one who doesn't need attention or support. My mother's face crumpled. Rachel, that's not true. We love you both the same. No, I replied firmly. You don't, you never have, and now you finally have to acknowledge my existence. The grand hall of Hawthorne Estate became the stage for the confrontation I'd both dreaded and needed for decades. Madison's tears had turned to fury, her perfect facade cracking completely. You've always been like this, she shouted, mascara streaking down her flushed cheeks. Cold and calculating and jealous of me, just because people like me better and I'm prettier and more sociable. Madison! My father's sharp interruption surprised us all. That's enough. James stood awkwardly, to the side, clearly reconsidering his future family connections. My mother had sunk into a velvet settee, looking suddenly older than her years. You can't do this, Madison continued, her voice breaking. You can't ruin my wedding. Don't you care about me at all? The question hung heavy in the ornate room. Did I care? Despite everything, she was still my sister. I do care, I said finally, but for once I'm caring about myself first. For 25 years, this family has operated with Madison at the centre of the universe. Today, we're acknowledging reality. I turned to my parents, keeping my voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm me. You emptied my college fund for her dance lessons and modelling portfolio. You missed my graduations for her auditions. You dismissed my career while subsidising her endless, fresh starts. And when I offered to help with this wedding financially, you rejected me, only to drain your retirement savings instead. My father's face had gone from defensive anger to something more complex, a dawning recognition that made him look away. We never meant to make you feel less important, my mother whispered. Intentions don't erase experiences, I replied. I needed parents too. I needed support and recognition and celebration, but I learned early that those things weren't available to me in this family. Madison had fallen uncharacteristically silent, watching this exchange with widening eyes, as if seeing our family dynamic from the outside for the first time. "What are you going to do?" she finally asked, her voice small. "About the wedding." It was the moment of choice Grandma Eleanor had prepared me for, revenge or resolution, punishment or possibility. "The wedding will proceed," I said after a measured pause. "Hawthorne Estate honours its contracts, but with conditions." I outlined my terms clearly. First, a genuine acknowledgement of the favouritism that had shaped our family. Second, family therapy sessions beginning the week after the honeymoon. Third, my role would be upgraded from last-place bridesmaid to co-maid of honour, sharing the position with Tiffany. Finally, my parents would accept my financial contribution toward the wedding, protecting their retirement. "These aren't negotiations," I concluded. "These are the terms for moving forward, not just with the wedding, but as a family." The silence that followed felt eternal. Finally, my father stood, his shoulders slumped in a way I'd never seen before. "You're right," he said, simply. "We've failed you, Rachel. Not just today or with this wedding, but consistently throughout your life." My mother joined him, tears streaming down her face. We told ourselves we were doing what was best, that Madison needed more attention, more support. We didn't see how that affected you. Their acknowledgement, the first genuine one in my memory, broke something loose inside me. Tears I'd held back for years finally came, not in the controlled, private way I usually allowed myself, but in heaving sobs that bent me forward. Madison approached hesitantly, her own makeup destroyed, looking younger and more vulnerable than I'd seen her in years. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I mean, I knew I got more everything, but I thought that's just how it was supposed to be." "It wasn't," I managed through tears. "It never was." That afternoon changed everything. The wedding proceeded the following day. Beautiful, elegant, and surprisingly meaningful. Standing beside Madison as co-maid of honour, I felt a new and fragile connection beginning to form. During her vows, she added an unplanned line about the importance of truly seeing the people we love, a small acknowledgement that brought fresh tears to my eyes. My grandmother watched the ceremony from a wheelchair, oxygen tank beside her, but beaming with pride. "You chose healing," she whispered when I bent to kiss her cheek. "That's my diamond girl." She passed away peacefully 3 weeks later, having lived just long enough to see the beginning of our family's healing. The promised therapy sessions were difficult, but transformative. My parents confronted their pattern of favouritism with painful honesty. Madison acknowledged her role in the dynamic and the privilege she'd unquestioningly accepted. I faced my own built-up resentment and the walls I'd constructed. 6 months after the wedding, we celebrated Thanksgiving together, the first holiday meal where I felt truly present and seen in my family. When my mother asked specifically about my latest project, with genuine interest rather than polite obligation, I realised how hungry I'd been for that simple recognition all my life. 1 year after buying Hawthorne Estate, I established the Eleanor Wilson Foundation, using a portion of the venue's profits to provide scholarships for overlooked students, the quiet achievers whose brilliance often went unrecognised. At the Foundation's launch event, held in Hawthorne's ballroom, my parents and Madison stood proudly beside me as I cut the ribbon. "I never would have predicted this outcome," my father said privately afterward, his eyes moist. "I'm so proud of the woman you've become, despite our failures." "Not despite," I corrected gently. "Partly because of. Everything that happened shaped me. The pain and the healing both. The journey from invisible daughter to valued family member wasn't instantaneous or perfect. Old patterns occasionally resurfaced, requiring patient correction. But the fundamental shift had occurred. I was finally seen. Hawthorne Estate became my most personally meaningful investment, not because of the revenge it once represented, but because of the reconciliation it ultimately created. The venue that was meant to be my statement of power became instead a symbol of transformation. Sometimes visitors ask about the unusual name of the company that owns the estate, Diamante Properties. I simply smile and tell them it's a reminder that true value isn't always visible at first glance, but worth discovering nonetheless. What about you? Have you ever had to make yourself seen in your family? Drop a comment below letting me know if you've experienced similar family dynamics and how you handled them. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Remember that sometimes the most difficult confrontations lead to the most meaningful healing. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I hope it helps you find the courage to seek the recognition you deserve in your own relationships.